A topic that's been on my mind the past few weeks, just given some experiences I've had with my own family and conversations I've had with close friends on their own upbringings, has to do with privilege. And it's a specific type of privilege that isn't talked enough about in school or on social media. And it's the privilege of having emotionally mature parents. When we think about privilege, there are so many different ways to define it. I feel like everyone is going to have their own sort of version. But when I think about privilege generally, I feel like it's this sort of benefit that you have by association or by virtue of this quality you have in your day to day way of being. And that's the thing, is that because it's part of your day to day just way of life, you often take it for granted. You don't really realize that it is a privilege. I mean, when I think about myself, my own experience, I mean, just a handful that come to mind, right? I mean, to start, I'm a guy, which comes with its own, laundry list of privileges in itself. I grew up in a two-parent household. I grew up in one of the best school districts in the state. I had access to extracurricular activities, whether it be sports, exam prep, you name it. And on top of all of that, I think a pretty significant privilege that we're more used to hearing about is financial privilege. I was able to graduate college without having to go into debt. And even now, as a working adult, I don't have to worry about supporting my parents, which, I know a handful of my friends do right now. I'm sure there are also, other privileges that I missed or, I may not be aware of, because that's the thing with privilege, right? It's that you often don't know what sort of privileges you have or don't have until someone else shares their experience, makes you aware of it. So, emotional maturity, right? It's so dependent on your own experience with your parents growing up, whether you realize it or not. And, before I even go any further, emotional maturity is so undervalued, so underappreciated, just not taught in schools. When I feel like, you know, beyond science, English, art, all of that, we need to be teaching people and sending the message that they need to work on becoming more emotionally mature, because we're not all born with the same level of emotional maturity. We all don't grow up with the same level of emotional maturity because we all have different parents and different experiences. So where you lie on like this sort of slider scale of emotionally immature to mature is going to vary widely. But emotional maturity, when I think about it, it's this ability, like yes, literally ability that you can build, you can cultivate, you can develop to be able to effectively manage and understand, work through your own emotions, especially when you're going through stressful or challenging situations. When I think about my own experience with going from super emotionally mature to what I'd consider more emotionally mature now, you start to recognize and like pick up on your unhealthy behaviors and patterns that you just sort of accepted as, this is who I am, this is how I think, how I do things. And it's only after you go through the process of understanding, of healing from the roots of those behaviors and patterns, that you realize there is another option, and that those past options weren't the healthiest. And at the same time, you also begin to recognize them within other people, within your other relationships, especially with your family. And that's exactly what happened with me and my parents. It wasn't like I just suddenly started to experience these sort of unhealthy, toxic behaviors from my parents when I got into my 20s. They were there my entire childhood. They contributed to my own emotional immaturity, excuse me. It's just now I had the knowledge, the awareness, the understanding to be able to identify and label them, right? And that's the thing. It's like when you're able to recognize this within other people, you start to view them less as, adults, but just overgrown children. Emotionally mature parents are a privilege that not a lot of people have, or those who do often take for granted. Just being able to, effectively know how to manage your own emotions without having to learn on the internet how to do so. Being able to communicate how you feel if something your parent did or said upset you, and be seen, heard, and understood. To not have your own experiences be turned into a conversation about them. To be able to get a text and not wonder if it's genuinely well intentioned or if it's going to be something to make you feel bad. Being able to just feel emotionally at ease and safe in their presence. I say all this because, it's been something I've been having to manage the past couple of years in my own relationship with my parents. And I won't lie, it's tiring. And it's something that I feel like shouldn't be, just having a relationship with your own parents. But it just takes up mental real estate in my head. And it's tiring. It's tiring. And one thing I've come to realize, given my own experience with my own healing, given my experience with my parents and our relationship, is that people won't change. You can't make them change unless they're at a point in their lives or with themselves where there's no other option but to change. Growing up, I held this quiet jealousy, envy towards my friends and their relationships with their parents. And I know every family has their own fair share of drama and issues that they have to manage. But as a kid, man, I just, watching them just being able to, crack jokes with their parents, have board game nights, just seem comfortable. As a kid, you want what you don't have. And I remember I would literally, I kid you not, I don't know if any of you are familiar, but I would watch Shay Carl and the Shaytards, I kid you not, just this white Mormon family from Idaho. I would watch their vlogs every single day in my room because I just envisioned and I would imagine myself, what it would be like to have that sort of family dynamic. But even though I quite honestly had that sort of, distaste for my own upbringing for the longest time, having, gone through the healing process of understanding and coming to accept and embrace all that I have experienced, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what I've experienced because at the end of the day, all of what I experienced as a kid growing up molded me into the person I am today. The person I aspire to become. It's still to me this deep conviction to be, compassionate human being, to want to connect with and serve others. It's made me someone who aspires to be an emotionally mature husband, friend, and hopefully one day parent. So I think about my life, not just in terms of like my upbringing, but also what I've also experienced the past couple of years from a career standpoint, if you want to call it that. I realized that I could care less about giving my kid a big house with a big yard. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the house feels empty, if it's a place they hesitate to return to. I say all that to say, I aspire to instead give my kid or kids, hopefully, the most emotionally present, nurturing experience as I possibly can, to fill them with so much unconditional love and support that they cannot help but ooze it out to others. That's the way to put it. Because I firmly believe that there is no greater gift, no greater privilege you can give to a child than the presence and love and care of an emotionally mature upbringing, to raise them in a way where they feel comfortable being themselves. They feel empowered to pursue their dreams. Because at the end of the day, every interaction that this human being has with someone else is an opportunity for positive change and impact. And if that's not the greatest gift you can give to society, give to the world, then I don't know what is. And the thing is, it's a privilege, it's a gift that can't be bought, but it can be earned. It can be earned through putting in the work, putting the time, going through the trials, and enduring oftentimes the painful experience of working on yourself, the baggage that you have carried throughout your entire life, to go from emotionally immature to mature. And at the end of the day, you have to do it for yourself, right? You have to do it for yourself. But at the same time, not only are you doing it for yourself, but you're doing it for those around you, so that your own actions, the way that you live your life, can minimize the amount of unnecessary hurt and pain you cause to those you care about, those who will be here long after you're gone.